All right, so we're gonna talk about failed arm triangles. No matter how well we set it up, you can see in the previous scene, I was ensuring to turn his body away from the arm triangle as long as possible, and then I was trying to keep my weight on top of them as long as possible so they can't generate momentum with a backwards roll or do some crazy shit like grab their own legs. Because if we're using an arm triangle, I really need this shoulder to the floor here. So if his arms are crossed, we're applying this pressure to get the strangle. If they start to lift the shoulder off the ground here, there's really no clean way to get the arm triangle here. I mean, you might be squeezing their necks, but the arm triangle pressure is generated down here, and that's with this shoulder collapsed to the ground. If they hit a hard bridge away from us here, we're gonna shallow out our arm, right? Arm triangle, I'm taking my hand as deep as possible. If we lose it and they bridge away, I shallow it out. So if you stay still here, my hand and shoulder are now in line with his shoulders here, right? So again, arm triangle is as deep as we can go. When they turn onto their side, we're looking to take this position here, right? So if I'm setting up an arm triangle and they bridge away, I'm going to start using an arm in Ezekiel choke here, right? So we're gonna grab our bicep and our secondary arm is gonna act in line with the spine. So it's in line with the spine. There is none of this slicing into the neck pressure. All my secondary arm is doing is staying in line with the spine. It helps us collapse the head here, right? Obviously, if my arm is too deep here, all I can do is try to push into that spine. But as they turn away and we shallow it out, we can grab our bicep and my forearm is in line with the spine. My left hand, that secondary hand pushes and my strangle arm starts to retract and we get the tap here. So we can finish on top quite easily here. So I'm pushing his head into the choke while that forearm's in line with his shoulders. My right arm retracts. So it's not a squeeze. I'm not squeezing everywhere as hard as I can. It's gonna hurt his neck. I push and retract. And if we really wanna make it tight, we can start to do that chair sit motion. I don't mind setting up the chair sit too much from here because as you can see, this submission is kind of dead to rights here. So I fall to my thigh here and we get that submission. So again, how this might look in the complete context is we're here, I've started to flatten them out and that shoulder powers back off the ground. So I shallow my arm out, almost as if I'm in the claw range. I grab my own bicep here. I place that arm and forearm blade behind their head. I start pushing their head and retracting our strangle hand. Push, retract. Not this. We're pushing and retracting. Don't just squeeze the neck. So we're trying to create that sort of frame behind the head that bends the head. And we can take this chair sit motion to have a little extra force. Because when I'm pulling them onto my right hip, it allows me to push the back of the head a lot better. So then, again, don't squeeze as hard as you can off the get-go. Start to apply consistent pressure over time. That's going to ultimately lead to that strangle pressure that you can maintain for a long time. Common mistakes people make trying really any submission, any strangle, but specifically arm in strangles, is that they just squeeze as hard as they can from the get-go, burn their arms out. We need to apply pressure that we can hold at least 20 seconds, and that's going to be a slow building pressure. Once you created the wedge, once everything's tight and locked, apply consistently growing pressure over time that we can maintain. And that's how we could use a failed arm triangle to set up an arm in Ezekiel.